on probably my county website as well as my personal website, and we will drive people to these discussions. They're really, really important. Thank you all for being here, having the patience to stay, and thank you so much to all of the folks who have been manning the tables, providing great information. Really appreciate you being here today. This is talking about the support we have available, and I've heard throughout the morning the frustration that many people and I share, the lack or the feeling of hopelessness, and what we have to do as fire survivors in order to move forward in rebuilding lives and rebuilding homes. It seems overwhelming and superhuman, but we have some great folks here who can help us through. And there are many people who have felt like they've fallen through the cracks. And I think we really can use the source of support from these panelists to help us identify those folks and get them the information that they need and the support that they need to feel like they are still a valued member of our community. We're going to start off first by an amazing organization that I really didn't know very much about until the fires, and this is the United Policyholders. Sandra Watts is here to talk to us. There you are, with the microphone right in front of you. So you can just tell us who you are and what you do.
Hello. Sorry. Hi, my name is Sandra Watts. I'm with United Policyholders. We are a nonprofit, 503c sorry, I'm getting myself going here, organization, and what we are is an advocacy and educational resource for policyholders. So what we do is we help people make their insurance work for them. So we try to help people every step of the way, getting them through the claims process and getting the most out of what they purchased when they bought an insurance policy. So we've been doing that. We've been here in Sonoma County and in Napa and Lake County since the fires happened. We've been doing monthly workshops, sort of systematically helping people get through the process. We're holding another workshop on August 7th at the United Universalist Church it's on Mendocino Avenue. It's on our website. We have a great website, by the way, uphelp.org. We have tons of information. We have a dedicated wildfire page there that kind of consolidates resources that people can use to help them get through this. But our August 7th workshop, we're trying to make these workshops really relevant to people as they go through the process. Our workshop on the 7th is going to be reconciling your insurance company's rebuild estimate with your contractor's rebuild estimate, and how to get those estimates to match up more closely, how to approach your insurance company, how to approach your builder. And then we're also going to deal with maximizing your additional living expenses. There's been some talk about that today in terms of 24 months isn't even nearly enough. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the fire. So we're going to talk about ways to sort of stretch that out for people.
Perfect, short and sweet. And I especially noted the name of your workshop. So what's the URL for your website?
Our website is uphelp.org. And our workshop will be the Scoop on Scope.
Okay, great. And I've heard United Policyholders speak before, and they're amazingly informed and inform me. So yeah. I think we may have a date for the August 7th workshop.
I was an insurance adjuster for 28 years.
Great.
So I worked for one of the major insurance companies. I was a manager for one of the major insurance companies. So I've been down this road with a lot of people directly. Our executive director, Amy Bach, is an attorney who has helped people with their insurance claims in the past. So I think we make a good team in terms of we've been there, we know what we're talking about, and we can really give some practical information.
I think that's where a lot of folks are now, is understanding the insurance and the gap in the insurance, and they may have an estimate on rebuilding, and that gap is enormous. And it's paralyzing to try to figure out how to move forward with rebuilding when you're facing that. Which brings up our next panelist, which I love. We have about 5 organizations with the same name and the same initials. Rebuild Our Community. They're a community lender. Thank you so much for being here, and tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Adrian Chorley. I'm the president and CEO of California Community Lender, and we are a locally based nonprofit 501c3, and we have created 2 loan funds to directly address the fire victims and rebuild efforts. So a lot of what people are faced with now with their insurance, and they're seeing this happen on a daily basis now, is that they have a shortfall. They were covered for maybe $200 a square foot, and the actual cost to rebuild, especially if you're up in Fountain Grove or Marquess Springs, places like that, people are looking at $400, $500, $600, I've heard as much as $900 a square foot to rebuild. And so Susan's in this situation, of course, similar. What we've done is we've created these loan funds to directly address that shortfall. So when people don't fit into the local banks or the national bank's guideline box, which is this big, right? We have a box that's this big. So we've created this box through funding, through local donations and community investment. So we're getting impact investors to come in. They get a lower return than they would through investing on Wall Street, but they get to invest in their community. And with those funds, we can finance the construction and rebuild of single-family homes for all the people that don't qualify or have a shortfall and gap in their funding. That's where we step in. We've also created a fund for working capital for local builders to be able to increase their capacity. One of the things we heard, obviously, on the last panel, was that you can get an extension possibly of 6 months. The issue is, though, that we've run out of builders locally. All the builders are now almost booked up. So what do we do as a community if we don't have any builders that can come in to help build our homes? The insurance will only last for so long. So we need to bring in more builders, more capacity, and we need to be able to house all of that workforce as well. How do we do that? We're going to have funding to be able to do that, to create temporary housing for all the construction workers that we need. You know, I hear estimates about how long it will take and how many houses can be rebuilt. I used to live in the Florida Keys, Key West. I went through several major hurricanes and several major rebuilds in that area. And I can tell you, when Andrew hit back in '93, it took 10 years before that place looked the same again. Katrina, when it hit New Orleans still doesn't look the same, okay? You run out of funding as a community. The government stops helping. They can only give so much, obviously. So we as a community, and not just ourselves, but all the communities around California who are being affected by fires and across this country, need to be self-reliant. And one of the only ways that you can do that is if you invest into your own community and you have that money there available to be able to reinvest and go back into that community. We can't rely on outside sources anymore. You heard it. Our own local government tried to get state legislature to change policy, and they've tried extremely hard to do that. I know that. They haven't been successful. And that's because we have to fight things like the insurance industry, who are a massive lobbying industry. We're not going to be able to change things like that easily. We have to really rely on ourselves to be able to do this. So it's up to us. And part of what my group is doing is focusing on that. We have several committees that are underneath us. One of them is a Rebuild Our Community committee that we formed right after the fires. That's directed more towards energy sustainability, green building, to be able to help people build ADUs, things of that nature. I'm also on a committee, another Rebuilding Our Community committee. As Susan was saying, there are many of them, which is part of Catholic Charities and Salvation Army and all the different charities around who are also focused on support services for our community, and they're doing a fantastic job of helping people find housing and support with rent and mental health and medical issues, you name it. But we need to do a lot more as a community because, as Susan said, this isn't a new normal, this is the normal now, and we have to be self-reliant. Resiliency does come into this and is being self-resilient as much as anything else. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to our next panelist.
Thank you so much. Great segue. And I want to make sure that you all know that Amy Appleton with Share Housing is sitting over there sharing a table with Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. Great information. If we just cloned you, you could just whip us right into shape because you're involved in 12 different things. And I've worked with legal aid for a very long time, and I am so glad that you're here, Kendall Jarvis. I didn't know that legal aid was really involved in working with insurance policy holders in navigating through this. I've worked with you because you've been essential in our community of trying to keep people in housing that under threat of eviction and making sure that everything is safe and legally done. We are in a housing crisis now more than ever. So tell us in what context legal aid is now moving in this conversation.
Absolutely, thank you. So as Susan said, my name is Kendall Jarvis. I'm the disaster relief attorney for Legal Aid of Sonoma County. Obviously, this position was created in the wake of the recent wildfires. In the beginning, we understood that there would be a lot of issues that came up that we could see from other disasters that had occurred. And the two major issues that always arise are, number one, insurance, and number two, dealing with FEMA and the bureaucracies associated with both of those entities as well. So we run a clinic series to address both the insurance issues where volunteer attorneys come and participate to help individuals get the information they need. And we also run a FEMA clinic to help move through the FEMA appeals process, which can also be daunting. And I also work one-on-one with individuals to help them essentially identify their legal needs and or their needs in general, and then help them move through the process and or find the avenues or vehicles that can help do that. Commonly in the insurance setting, I always say to people, when you lost your home, after you evacuate and you think, okay, thank God, the worst of this is over, right? At least I survived, I can move forward. And then you met your insurance adjuster, right? And it's very true. Most people thought that the biggest part of this loss was sustaining the actual loss itself. But such a big part of recovery in general is moving through the process of the recovery and what's associated with that. And the reality is that our insurance industry is a broken structure. It's been broken long before we arrived at this place, and it hasn't been fixed. And we're running into a lot of issues. Number one, on the political level, as I believe Susan mentioned before, that it's hard to make laws retroactively, right? It's hard to address these issues for us now. And similarly, from a litigation standpoint, litigation's not ideal. It's incredibly emotional, it's incredibly tolling. It takes a significant amount of resources, time, effort, and energy. And it makes you relive the very trauma that you're attempting to move on from, which is never a good thing. So what I try and do is help people identify other ways that they can maximize the resources that they have and or the benefits that they're entitled to be able to rebuild. And that generally means a variety of things. Part of it is working with the insurance company and holding them responsible for the broken aspects of the system. Part of it is helping people understand the PG&E potential implications of liability there. Other parts of it are getting gap funding or necessary assistance from FEMA or some of the other organizations that you can. People are in a variety of different situations, but the reality of all of them is that this disaster created a new identity of vulnerable peoples. People may have, survivors may have, $500,000 sitting in the bank right now, but if they can't rebuild their major asset, and it's not financially feasible for them to do that, then suddenly they're much more vulnerable than they were prior to the fire. The cost of housing are increasing dramatically, right? The cost of building is increasing dramatically. So we're in a spot where it's not just any one thing that someone needs to do. It's a combination of multiple things. It's educating oneself, it's finding the strongest arguments, it's utilizing and working within the systems that are there, and finding those pieces that you can use to apply pressure on the system to get what you need to get to recover and to be able to rebuild. And that is essentially a difficult process, but it's much easier if you reach back to the resources that are trying to reach out to you. And whether that's reaching out to your community government when you have concerns and asking them to direct you to where you need to go, reaching out to the agencies that are involved, but reaching out to your other co-survivors and other community members. We are a strong community. I grew up here, so I understand the value of this community. It's a huge part of the reason why I return. And I do believe we can work through this, but we have to work through it both on an individual level and collectively as a community. And we have to keep pushing because it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And it's unfortunate that we're here, but as Julia brought up before as well, we're doing a really good job. And that's something that one should take a moment to say, as hard as this has been, as awful as this has been, we are strong. And we are here to recover. So if you need help with anything in terms of guidance, what to do, this term legal needs always seems to be something that's like, oh, I'm gonna go run to court and file a lawsuit. Well, that's not my intention. I think litigation is a last resort. So I'm here purely to help identify what makes the most sense in terms of moving forward to try and get you or anyone who needs that kind of help a step closer to recovery. Thank you.
Thanks, Kendall. It really is wonderful that you are here and providing great information. Appreciate always the work that Legal Aid does. Finally, but not least, we love United Way. They've been with us through thick and thin, and mostly through thick because you do so many things in our community, but you are here representing a couple of different efforts. Jennifer O'Donnell, why don't you tell us a little bit about what United Way is doing now?
Sure. Our United Way is called United Way of the Wine Country, and we represent Sonoma, Mendocino, Lake, Humboldt, and Del Norte. So you can imagine the impact the fires had. You know, it wasn't just here in Sonoma County, it was also in Mendocino County, it was in Lake County. We actually had a little practice in dealing with fires through some earlier Lake County fires. And our mission is to mobilize the caring power of the community. And that has never meant more to me than now, as we see how many people are stepping forward to give, to advocate, to volunteer around helping this community recover and helping fire survivors. In the immediate aftermath of during actually the fires, we were lucky enough to get some funding through the Redwood Credit Union, Mike McGuire, Press Democrat Fund, and be able to give out over 6,000 mini grants to individuals to just help with whatever they needed in those first few weeks. Now we're really pleased to be here talking about a neighborhood grant program that we're able to do thanks to a $50,000 donation from Sonoma Clean Power. I'm sorry, did I say that? Yeah. $50,000 donation from Sonoma Clean Power. And then through a lot of individual donors, we were able to add another $50,000 from United Way donors. And so what we're doing is we're reaching out to groups that maybe it's an existing neighborhood association, maybe it's a group of neighbors who never met each other before the fire. But what we're looking for are projects that would help a neighborhood recover 5 or more households. And we don't really know exactly, everybody keeps asking me, like, what specific projects do you want? And it's hard to say, because what we really want to hear is from all of you, what is it that you really need to recover? What is not being covered by your insurance? What is a collective need you have? Some of the things I have heard about have been wells or fences or walls that insurance is not covering because it was a communal space. Some of the other ideas are we want to organize our community better so we'll be better prepared in the future. And that requires things, little things like making copies or having a website. So it's really kind of open right now. We have a volunteer committee that will review all the applications. Suzanne is over here at our table, can answer any questions about that process. We have applications here. They're also available on our website. And we just encourage you to, I know you have a lot of paperwork to do right now, but we tried to make it as simple as possible to encourage as many people as possible to apply. And then the last thing I want to talk about is, actually this was already mentioned a little bit, the Rock Sonoma, Rebuilding Our Community Sonoma. This is it's a collaborative effort of a lot of different nonprofits, the county, the city. And through this work, we're doing a lot of different things, but one of the things I want to make sure everybody knows about is at CAP Sonoma, they have a fire recovery resource center, and we also have these flyers at our table. This is a place to go to ask any more questions or just find some support. There's a lot of mental health services available to just about anyone. It's not all income-based, so don't be afraid if you're not. You know, what I hear from a lot of people is, yeah, we're in a bad situation, but other people are in a much worse situation. Don't worry about that. Come in, find out what might be available to you, and let us help. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We as a community, I'm finding many silver linings in these tragedies, and one of the finest silver lining is that the community has rediscovered itself. We've met our neighbors, we've come together, we have evacuated door to door, neighbors calling neighbors. We have brought everybody together in the evacuation centers, either as an evacuee or someone contributing services and food. We have our grief counselors. We have all of the amazing nonprofits in our community that continue to offer services. I want to thank all of our panelists because not only are we rediscovering ourselves, but we are inventing even different services. And certainly United Policyholders and the community lenders and legal aid in a very new way and united way. All of the folks who've participated in our panels throughout today and all of the folks who have been sitting behind the tables, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything that you continue to do. And once again, we call upon you for your expertise, and you are there. So have a great weekend, prepare for the future, and again, our table mates here will be available to answer your questions. The City of Santa Rosa, the County of Sonoma, nonprofits, Sonoma Clean Power, the Marin Sonoma Water Saving Partnership. I can't list you all, but you are here. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.